I'd like to call the meeting to order for the 18th of September 2019.
We have
And you have some people?
Yes, we have a group of students here to say the Pledge of Allegiance, and they are from the Memorial School. We have Leah Donovan, Maya Levitt, Alyssa Booten, and Nicholas DeGrotola.
Come on down here, the next contestant on The Price is Right. The flag is right
The
here.
flag's right here.
Okay.
You start us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for
Stay
all.
right here. I've got a certificate for you, Leah. Thank you. Maya. Alyssa. Nicholas. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you. They're so cute. Then they grow up to teenagers.
And it never gets met.
Not usually.
Any minutes? Okay, sorry, before I start that. Jim Baker is off-site. He's on telecommunications. Okay, all votes will have to be voice votes. And I think that's everything.
The reason for his remote
Jim, no, he's got,
attendance?
well, I can see he's got headphones on. Jim, anybody with you?
No.
Okay. All right, minutes, action on the minutes.
Move to approve. Second.
Oh, yes, Jamie.
I'd just like to make an amendment to the minutes since I changed my vote on the rock wall last time. I'd like it to be reflected in the minutes as to the reasons why. And I did mention these at the minutes during the last meeting. One was because it was going to cost the district no money, and one was it would not be used in replacement of academic time.
You got okay? Okay. Any other comments?
I noticed on the last page that our non-public started at 7 p.m., but I believe it should be 8 p.m. Or ended at 8 p.m. and it said we ended at around 7.
Time didn't quite line up.
Right, it's an hour off.
Okay, that makes sense
So just
because
check
we had
on
the
that.
hearing.
Right.
We had the public hearing
Yeah,
at
so it
7,
couldn't
so it
have
would have been
been
8
7.
o'clock.
Right.
Thank you for clarifying.
Any other comments on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Would you like to make a comment?
No, it is like I blinked it.
Communications. The manifest is working its way around. Nominations, none still.
I believe we have one nomination.
Okay, this is done last Thursday, so sometimes there's a change.
Yep. Oh, wait, actually, I apologize. I got the wrong folder. No nominations, correct, Phyllis?
Yes, no resignation.
No resignations
Thank you.
either.
Superintendent's report.
Well, I have a long report. And I wrote it ahead of time, so I'd be efficient. All right. So I wanted to give everyone a quick heads up that in your folder, you will see that our district has recently been awarded ALICE organizational certification. This is a significant event. We've worked very hard to achieve this through the Superintendent Safety Advisory Team. On September 9th, the Sanborn District earned this organizational certificate from the ALICE Training Institute. This is a prestigious honor. It's due to our impressive team effort in the district. Sanborn is now aligned with the federally mandated best practice of blended learning for implementing active shooter training. All of our personnel are ALICE certified, and the training we use is reinforced and exercised through drills and scenarios conducted by ALICE certified instructors. Our emergency operation plans also reflect this training, and it is meant to save lives and minimize risk. My next point is we had some excellent training with a professional who focuses on teacher evaluation. We recognize that in order to improve student achievement, we need to improve instruction. And so we've been working with a gentleman named Kim Marshall. He spent a day with our administrative team recently teaching them the best practices in teacher evaluation. And the high school last year piloted this model of teacher evaluation, and now the rest of the district is piloting it, and we're hoping to fully implement it next year. I will give you more information about that in the future as the pilot progresses. The high school received an award recently, and Mr. Stack is going to present about that later. But he did want me to let you know that the SRHS homecoming is this Saturday, 9/21. Sorry if I stole your update. I just realized you probably were going to talk about that. And there's a big college fair on 9/25 as well. 70 plus schools will be there, and grades 9 through 12 will have dedicated times to attend. Memorial and Bakey have recently been recognized as Blue Ribbon Award winners for 2019 by the New Hampshire Partners in Education. The New Hampshire Partners in Education Blue Ribbon Award recognizes the extraordinary effort of schools' volunteers for the achievements realized during the previous school year. The 2019 Blue Ribbon Award is given to successful and effective school volunteer programs during the 2018 and 19 year. Bakey is also being awarded the Golden Circle Award, which is given to schools that partner with businesses and nonprofit organizations. Bakey is being recognized for their partnership with the Brown Center at the University of New Hampshire. They've offered training to staff in the area of social and emotional learning over the past year, and they've also helped facilitate their field day experience with the student last fall. A quick update that the rock climbing wall is in its final stages of installation, and our staff and students are really thrilled to have the new resource. I did personally go over and tour the climbing wall site. It's pretty amazing. Several staff members will be trained on the proper use and supervision in early October, and we hope to offer 2 different climbing clubs before school this year, one in the winter and one in the spring. The PE teachers are already looking to build climbing time into their classes later this fall. So again, we want to thank the board and the folks in the community who made the donation. At the middle school on September 19th from 6 to 7 p.m., 7th and 8th grade open houses will be at SRMS. Parents and students are welcome together. September 27th, there's a back to school dance from 7 to 9. Grades 6 through 8 are invited to attend. And on October 8th, from 6 to 7 p.m., the 6th grade parent night for the upcoming visit to Nature's Classroom in Groton, Mass., which is on November 5th through 8th. I think one other thing that will be discussed later on this evening, Mr. Stack's going to do a presentation on the Professional Learning Community Award, and our business administrator will be talking about changes in Medicaid billing later on this evening. So that concludes my superintendent's report.
Questions? Policy.
Policy has not met since the last board meeting. Our next meeting is October 2nd at 4:45 p.m. in room 102 of the high school. The committee will discuss changes to 3 existing policies and possibly add 14 new NHSBA sample policies related to board and staff codes of ethics and conflicts of interest. Subjects to be covered at our next meeting include board employee communications, handling of confidential student information, employee uses of social media, employment of relatives, student staff relations, employee gifts, and advertising in schools. So please join us.
Facilities?
Facilities Committee meeting met on September 4th, beginning at 3:50 p.m. We reviewed and approved the minutes of the June 26th meeting. Business Administrator Matt Angel reported that the construction designs for work to create a separate middle school entrance at the high school have been submitted to the town and are awaiting approval. The committee reviewed 2 monthly expenditure reports. They're designated as for health and dental and excluding health and dental. We also reviewed the trust and revolving fund balances, and we reviewed the revenue report for July. There were no changes to these reports from those reviewed at the August 21st Finance Committee meeting, which was reported to the school board on September 4th. The committee discussed a proposal to replace some auditorium equipment that the IT department wants to update. This equipment is currently very out of date, and they are having trouble connecting the equipment to the current broadcasting and projection technology. We also discussed a proposal to install a mesh camera for improved security in the high school parking lot. Matt Angel is awaiting quotes for this item. The current cameras in the parking lot do not adequately cover the view of the entire parking lot. The mesh camera will allow the cameras to jump between each other to go back to a wireless router so that multiple cameras can be installed without having to run underground wires. This will be discussed further once a quote is obtained. We reviewed and approved some cost estimates for proposed capital improvement plan for the fiscal years 2020 through 2025. The current total of the plan is $1,250,931. That amount includes $750,000 for this approved by the school board for the middle school transition. Mr. Angel reinforced that these estimates are just a plan, not a budget. The estimates in the CIP are not committed dollars and reflect worst-case dollar scenario. We reviewed and discussed proposals submitted by architectural firms for future services. The anticipated services needed will be for the design of bathrooms and locker rooms and related construction and permitting to complete renovations to accommodate the middle school transition. 9 firms submitted applications. After discussing the information provided, the committee decided to narrow the list down to the top 4 most qualified architects, and Matt will request contract rates from those 4. The meeting was adjourned at 4:32 p.m., and the next facilities meeting is scheduled for October 2nd at 3:45 p.m.
Thank you. Okay, public relations.
Public Relations has a meeting on October 9th at 4:30.
Personnel.
Personnel met on September 11th. Attending were Brown, Jamie Fitzpatrick, Superintendent Ambrose, Business Administrator Matt Angel, and Human Resources Coordinator Diana Rooney. The superintendent's evaluation form was reviewed and slightly modified for forwarding to the board tonight. Ms. Rooney's assistance was much appreciated, and she helped us begin discussion on a universal set of exit interview questions for all employees leaving or retiring from our district. We will continue work on this important item at our next meeting. The district currently also lacks a detailed travel reimbursement policy, and the need for a well-defined set of rules governing travel expenses was discussed. A sample draft of such a policy was distributed and reviewed, and Mr. Angel said he would produce a customized draft tailored to suit our school district's needs for the next meeting, or at an upcoming meeting, I should say, maybe not the next one. At our next meeting, we will also begin work updating the district job descriptions and discuss policy GDB, non-union support staff wage and benefits. And our next meeting is October 9th at 5 p.m. in room 102. As you can see, the excitement really never ends with the personnel committee, and everyone is welcome to attend. It never does stop, really.
I thought you would have said that with policy.
I tried to, but I left it for personnel.
Larry and I are on policy. How exciting is that? Thank you. Student council, Aaron, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm okay. Things are settling in.
Yeah.
Good. All right. What you got? Anything?
So, as Mr. Ambrose said, we're in the middle of our homecoming week. Obviously, the points aren't we aren't very far into it now, but seniors are in first, juniors in second, sophomores in third, and freshmen in fourth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we have the pep rally on Friday, and then the parade and the skits and dance on Saturday at 8 a.m. And then after homecoming week, we're going to start planning the Student Council Southern District Conference. That's at Camp Lincoln every year. And we're also going to start thinking of new fundraiser ideas.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Just regarding homecoming, from a parent perspective, I can tell you that it's a lot of work. It's an enormous amount of work that the students do. And it's all done out of school. It's not done during school time unless it's at lunch or on a
I was
break.
there
whatever.
right before here.
And I just would encourage everyone to come. If you can, the students write skits, they design these floats, they spend a lot of time working on that, and a dance, I believe, also. And then in the afternoon, There are sporting events, there are soccer games, girls and boys soccer, there's a football game, and the students have, each class sets up a food tent. So there's something for everybody. My favorite is the fried Oreos. I hope they're deep fried. Someone has those this year?
We have that this
Because it rotates every year with the classes. So I just wanted to mention that. It really is an enormous amount of work, and the students do learn some of those skills that we talk about, collaboration and conflict resolution.
Thank you. Time for public comment one. Going once. Twice. Sold American. Except that's a tobacco ad, so we probably shouldn't do it. New business. Matthew, you're up.
Okay, I'm gonna ask to table the architectural bids for service for tonight.
Yep, I should have mentioned that, but you want to put that on the agenda for next meeting, if you would? Okay,
And then the next one is I'm submitting the 2020-21 budget timeline for approval by the school board. If you have any questions, please ask.
you have those dates?
They're in your folder.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I know what they are.
And they're
but
the
I don't-
same, it's the same format that we've used the last 3 years.
I had one question.
Yep.
Can you scroll up, Pam, or
Yeah.
up in time? There was one meeting there was one meeting that looked like we were meeting on here, but we don't actually have a meeting scheduled. And of course, I didn't make a note.
Further down.
This might have been in January 9th maybe, or the 15th. Can you scroll to January?
It might have been because of the
At
holiday break.
January 15, I think.
Oops, hold
Can you go
on.
to,
Yep.
just scroll a little bit down? January 15 says, "School board approves preliminary school district warrant with petitioned articles," but I don't believe our calendar has us meeting that day.
I think the date there is, it's a specified day where it has to occur before the actual,
Right.
there was one of the days where trying to make it fit was really difficult.
I think it's by statute.
It's
right?
by statute, yeah. It had to be like 20 days. If you look down below, it says 20 days prior to the meeting. So that's why no, I'm sorry, go back up.
I don't know.
Are we
I
adding a
didn't see
meeting
it.
to the calendar, is my question?
It just needs to be approved at the meeting prior to that date.
Yes, that's the drop dead
But
date.
that's just a deadline.
It's
Yes.
just a deadline.
I didn't get
Thank you.
agenda.
Move
Just
to
a-
approve.
Just a comment.
What? Yep.
Can we just check, and of course, it could well be user error, but I can't find this in the file. So just verify it's there, if not, if we can post it.
So you want to send it to you, how about an email?
That's fine too.
I
just
don't have it
don't have
either.
it.
That's okay. Fellas, could we make sure that Matt gives that to you and you ship it to us on the email?
Yes.
The schedule for the. Okay. Any other comments?
Do we need a motion on this?
Yes, I do.
Move to approve.
Second. Comments should have been after.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, any other comments, sorry? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, you gotta, yes, yes,
Aye.
yes.
Aye. Jim?
Yes.
I gotta say, it reminds me of doing a thing with the kids they still use the Van de Graaff generator? No? Kids put it on it, and I ran the kids down the hallway, and then they touched something metal, and ow, 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 all the way down to the generator. Okay,
Mr. Stack.
yes, Mr. Stack, just a quick question. About how long are you talking?
9 minutes.
Huh?
9 minutes or less.
9 minutes
Ready to
is good, because at 6:30, we have a,
Does that leave us 1 minute for questions and comments? 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't think that's
Yes,
gonna be enough.
five minutes to allow for
the reason I say that is we have a 6:30 mandatory.
Not a problem.
But that means you can't start before 6:30, just so you know.
Well, that's true.
Good
That's
point.
true.
Okay.
But don't take more than 9 minutes.
This is frozen all of a sudden. It's okay. Of course, they say that. It's been working fine. Now I walk over here and I have no network connection or something.
There you are.
Well, I'm on, but Doesn't mean I have a network connection. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay. Thanks for letting me come today, folks. I'm excited to talk to you about, I'm going to call it a recognition that the school has received, not necessarily an award. This is a process that we went through this year at the high school in our efforts to become better at what we call the professional learning community model. So we're now the third school in the district to get to this stage with PLCs. We're really excited to be joining Bakey and Memorial that went through this process 6 or 7 years ago, I think, for the first time. So let me tell you a little bit about Solution Tree and the professional learning community model. So you're aware, Solution Tree is actually an international company established in 1998. It provides support to educators. And they say their mission is for educators looking to raise student achievement in their schools. So most of their support, which they do professional development, they do research-based content, they do services, they all hover around these 4 categories, these products, if you will. So they have professional learning communities at work, response to intervention, which Mr. Ambrose has talked a lot about. Although we aren't officially using RTI in all of our schools, we use a lot of the ideals of RTI. Then they also actually have a couple of mathematics products that we don't use. Doesn't mean they're not things that we couldn't look at. But we've been using the professional learning community model here at Sanborn for about the last decade or so. And I'll tell you a little bit more about professional learning communities. But if you are a school interested in getting the distinction of a model PLC school, what Solution Tree is looking for from the school are these bullet points right here. All right, so not that I want to read them to you. I know you can read them all, but I do want to highlight a couple of things here. So being a PLC school is not about checking boxes, all right? It's about a cultural shift. It's about the way that you approach work and how you approach work and how you make decisions in your building. So you have to be able to show a commitment to that process over multiple years and show evidence that it's making an impact on student achievement, essentially. That's what you're looking to do when you do this process. You submit it online. It gets reviewed by people that are other model PLC schools. Solution Tree will pull people in to review data and give you a report. And we went through a process to do this where I submitted information, I got information back, we're looking for this, we're looking for that, we need more evidence of this. And this process went back and forth a few times before we got our final distinction. So you know, a professional learning community, we consider it to be a foundation in our work here at Sanborn, and how we approach doing the work is all based on this idea of teacher collaboration. So by definition, they call professional learning communities, they use PLC as the acronym. It's an ongoing process in which educators work collaboratively in reoccurring cycles of collective inquiry and action research to achieve better results for the students they serve. It's exactly the process you go through when you research anything in any field, anywhere, anytime. I'm doing action research right now in college classes that I'm taking, and I'm sure that any of you that have taken advanced classes that have had any amount of research have had to go through a similar kind of process. So when we think about a PLC, I like to have some kind of a visual, something that really pulls people in that maybe aren't familiar with the idea. So I talk about the difference between when you work alone versus when you work with a group of people versus when you work with a group of people with a purpose. And I'll often actually do this little activity with people. I will tell them, I'm going to put a triangle up on the board, and you're going to have 10 seconds to memorize as many of those letters as you can, and then write them down. And you're going to do it individually. And then I put the triangle up, I take it down, people write down the letters, and as you might expect, people get like 10 to 12, maybe if they're lucky, letters in the right place, in the right spot from memory. Then I say to them, okay, now you're working as an individual. If you now talk with all the people that are in your group and compare your results and see if somebody, come up with a collective, like if you got the first one, but I didn't get the first one, but one of you got it, does that help you have a more complete picture of the triangle? And you might pick up a couple more triangle points there. But really, the way to do this correctly, and then we try it, is I say, okay, now I'm going to give you a different triangle. But before I do, I'm going to let you strategize with the people at your table as to how you're going to approach this work with the end goal that you want to be able to write down all 25 letters in the exact same spots. And so as you expect, the group will actually strategize, okay, you take the first couple rows, I'll take the bottom row, you take the left side, I'll take the right side. And don't you know, when they go to do the work, they're much, much more successful, right? So an individual can only do so much. Working as a group of people together, you might do a little better, but when that group can strategize and you start to become a team, that's where you're going to be at the top of your game. That philosophy we try to use with everything that we do at Sanborn. So when we think that way, the PLC approach is we're looking for teachers who accept learning as their fundamental purpose. They work together to achieve that collective purpose, and they assess their effectiveness on the basis of results rather than intentions. And they're holding each other accountable through this process. I know it sounds like a really grandiose idea, like, well, wouldn't it be nice? Sounds great in theory. Well, it's always a work in progress. So getting this honor from the model PLC schools is not because we figured out how to do this in all ways, shapes, and forms. It's because Solution Tree feels like we put a process in place whereby we can actively pursue this and look to get incrementally better at this every year. So there's 4 key questions. Actually, I'm going to skip that in the interest of time. You don't need that. I will tell you, if you are, I think Phyllis or Tom, did you send out this slide deck to the board? Okay, great. So when you get this, there's actually a link you can click on here that the school district made several years ago. It's actually their PLC implementation rubric. It's what they ask of teachers, regardless of which school they're in, with regards to PLCs. So that was part of the evidence that we submitted. These are all the different essays that they make us write when we put together our application, and you don't have to read those right now. You can actually go to a live link of our application, because that's the whole idea of the process, is that once they've vetted your model, they put it out there and make it publicly available for other schools looking to improve their process to be able to go to and learn from. So all of our answers are on that link that you'll get from Phyllis. But this is really the point that I want to drive home with all of you right now. So when I went through my review with them, which went back and forth probably over a 3 or 4 month period, what it really came down to for them that they were struggling with was how to measure student success. And what they were most intrigued by was actually the definition of student success that the school board started talking about last year. And what really interested them about this definition was that there were options for students. There were opportunities for students, and they could see very clearly how our PLC model could really work to the advantage of really realizing that definition. The problem was they wanted 3 years of data. We haven't had the definition that long. We have 2 years of data, right? So I had to go back and I had to figure out what the year before the data that we didn't have would have been. So that's what you got in front of you right here. And this for them was really the difference maker. They liked seeing this kind of commitment, and they believe wholeheartedly that as we continue to grow with our PLC approach, we're going to continue to show growth, not only in the bottom. I mean, they like seeing that bottom row there where we've sort of moved from 49% to 85%, but they definitely are hopeful that this process is going to help us with some of the individual data that we're looking at wanting to improve. All right, so I mean, we can, whether it's our SAT data, whether it's our AP scores, whether it's down the road, we want to start looking at, all right, we have kids meeting 2 or more of these. What's our percentage of students meeting 3 or more of these, or 4 or more of these? So what I look at when I see this, I see opportunity. I see this as a leverage point for us with our staff to be able to continue our work as a team trying to address student success. 1 minute over, but I was trying to say succinct. That's what I have to say about that. I'll certainly take some questions if that is what you have. I'm not taking them.
Before we do, I'd like to say one
I
thing.
always want to jump into my school board chair role here, and I haven't been a chair in 10 years, Pete.
Peter, can I just?
You never lose it.
I really want to draw everyone's attention to the acceptance into a 4 or 2-year college or trade school or approved apprenticeship. It started out at 65% in 2017 and now it's 90%. That's the bottom line. People in our culture will say that the SAT is so important. I would argue and counter that that is far more important. The SAT has never been proven as an indicator of success, and it was never designed to assess the effectiveness of public schools' performance. It was designed to place people in a bucket. The first bucket is you go to college and you're a leader, 4-year degree. The second bucket is the second group of 33 1/3% go to technical school, and the other 33 1/3% go to the world of work. I'm very glad and encouraged to hear that local universities are dropping the SAT requirement. That is a really great step for our country and culture. The bottom row, getting accepted and going, is great. I also am curious about how many go to the second year. So the persistence rate is another really important data point because that tells us, were they ready? That's real data.
And we average, it's not up there, but we average in the low 80% for that.
Which is
the
phenomenal.
state average is in the high 70s, and I think the national average is probably low 70s for that.
Yep, that's great. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out is the massive growth in dual enrollment credits earned. I just wanted to take a minute to thank the ISA committee because they worked really, really hard to develop this collaboratively with staff. But they also reflect the goals of the state. New Hampshire put forward a lot of this criteria when they applied for their federal grants. So our state is moving in the right direction of looking at the holistic nature of students, not just one narrow score. I'm really, really happy about that. So I just wanted to point that out before we proceed.
I just wanted to say this is very impressive. And I don't have any tattoos yet, but I think this would make a great tattoo for me. So I'm wondering if you have any recommendations for tattoo artists in the area.
You're on a roll tonight.
I am. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. It's like I said, it's a work in progress, and I really want to reiterate that. Probably the work is never done, but the most rewarding part is being able to do the work with educators where we all can respect where we're all coming from and figure out how we can work together to maximize our efficiencies in order to be able to help kids be successful, because that's really what it's all about. So, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
I want you to give yours now. Okay, I know it's 6:30, but as I was corrected by the lady from Kingston.
Don't start tonight.
I was just gonna say, I started and then I couldn't figure out how to get out before I finished.
Your favorite town moderator.
Yes. You've been the only town moderator since I've been in town.
Been doing it for 34 years.
Oh, that's almost as old as I am.
Certainly as old as I am.
We get along on this board. What a difference. Matt, you're up.
Going to do the public hearing?
Yes, I would like to do, actually, I would like to do this first.
I'm going to ask the board accept the grant from Toshiba America.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I would like to go to 7.4, 7.5 and get rid of that.
Okay, get rid of that?
Yes.
Okay,
I have my reasons that I'll explain some other time.
okay. Can you, Jamie, Ellie, both have a copy? So if you can hand
I'm all
that
set.
out. Okay, what's being handed out right now is a draft version of the MS-24, which is the estimated revenues for the school district.
Yeah.
These are estimated revenues that are required by the Department of Revenue, which are a component to set the tax rate. They're required to be filed by September 1st. Unfortunately, many of the numbers that are on this estimated revenues are real estimates because the state's budget has not been set.
That was, okay, if I may interject, sorry, that was why I wanted this now. I happened to, as I talked to the superintendent, I think Ellie, you were there, I talked to a state rep. The state has not yet told us how much money we're gonna be getting. So they don't know so we don't know what revenues we're using on that. And the reason I wanna bring this up now, if anybody's on TV watching us, please, an email or something, every community in this state right now must be pulling their hair out, as we will, because we don't know what we're gonna be getting for revenue. How can we possibly set our budgets? How can we even start working on them? So it's
Or set the
important that
tax
they start getting, I'm sorry, the tax rate, not the budget. The tax rate. The tax rate is usually set by the Board of Selectmen, October, and here we are, and we don't know what we're getting. So how the heck are we gonna do that? So we have to use, I think you used last year's, am I right?
Yeah, last year's information
And
as
it
best
is
I can.
truly an estimate this year.
All right, so of course, delaying filing the MS-24 is most beneficial for the school district. However, it's not beneficial for each of the towns. Basically, when the tax rate is set, the state has a queue where when all the forms are all filed, they put you into a queue. If we do not file the MS-24, the town of Kingston and Newton can't get into that queue. Therefore, your tax bills are going to go out late. It'll be detrimental for both the town and the school districts. So I'm going to be filing this estimated revenues as they are with the hopes of updating it before the tax rate is set. Now, let me go through some of the important pieces of this. I'm estimating a reduction in revenues of $359,000 as compared to last year. Tuition, let me go through each of the pieces. Tuition, I'm estimating an increase of $143,000, roughly for more accurate rate of students that we're receiving from the town of Fremont. I'm also increasing earnings on investments $15,000 to $25,000. Last year's earnings were in the 70s, $70,000, but I don't believe that we're going to be receiving that kind of interest income this year because I've changed the tax assessment model for the towns, so they're not having to pay us so quickly. The next big piece that I'm going to be on the estimate is I'm going to ask for $110,000 of impact fees, where $87,000 is going to come from Kingston and $22,000 is going to come from Newton. School building aid is going to be a reduction as compared to last year of $25,000, and this is a known item. We know what school building aid is going to be until 2026. The next item is kindergarten aid. This is a complete guess, and I'm making this guess based upon what they've already paid us this fiscal year. So I've taken that one payment and multiplied it by 4 to come up with $84,000. So it's a reduction of almost $19,000 from last year. Next is catastrophic aid. This is also a guess, and I only put in $200,000, which is a reduction of $17,000 as compared to last year. The next one, however, is a kicker. Last year we estimated Medicare revenue at $90,000. We received $163,000. However, currently, the Department of Health and Human Services for the state of New Hampshire, we're not talking the federal government, we're talking the state. They've changed a regulation that's now requiring us to get approval by a licensed physician or a licensed psychologist in order to have some of these devices that we purchase through IEPs to be approved. I've dropped the revenue estimate to $10,000, and that might be too high. Okay, so picture losing about $160,000 worth of revenue. Finally, use of fund balance, I'm estimating at, well, actually the number is $1,013,000, which is a reduction of $490,000 as compared to last year. Now, this $1 million does not include the $400,000 that the board had set aside back in June. So since I know the expenditure side and the revenue side, I can actually make a tax rate guess. And I just want to let you know that when I did these numbers, neither town had updated their assessed values. So this is also a guess, all right? I'm estimating now, this is the total combined tax rate for the local and state share. I'm estimating Kingston to be $17.39 per thousand and Newton to be $22.01 per thousand. Now, as compared to last year, Kingston, this would be a $1.02 increase or 6.23%. For Newton, this would be $1.38 or 6.69%. Now, the increase is made up of an increase of appropriations of $1.1 million, which is because of the default budget, and then also the approval of 2 union collective bargaining agreements last year, combined with a reduction of revenue of $359,000. Now, for the impact for a home, if a home is $300,000 assessed value, in Kingston, that would mean that your school tax would be $5,217. And for Newton, it would be $6,603. This is roughly a $306 increase as compared to last year for Kingston, and a $414 increase for Newton. Now, I want to remind the board again, the revenue estimates are estimates. They're going to change a lot. Also, the assessed value for Kingston and Newton, I didn't know at the time of this, writing this, so the tax rate's going to change as well. But at this time, this is my best guess.
Now, it's important we understand that everything he has said is beyond our control. There's nothing that the town or the school districts can do. This is beyond, this is revenue from outside sources. You can't control that. We're at their mercy. So I'm a little concerned, I'm as concerned as everyone. We're going to be trying to fine tune this as best we can as the information comes in. But as of now, Larry's shaking his head, I'm shaking my head, but I almost want to say it's not us, you know? It's frustrating because we're the board, right? Somehow you take responsibility for it even though it isn't, because that's our nature, you know? So we're going to be doing the best we can, but the cloud doesn't look very, it doesn't look like there's too much silver to that cloud. Any questions?
I think it's important to note that we discussed whether or not to share this at this point, and there is a timeline that's being driven by the communities needing to know what our estimate is. And so Mr. Angel has worked hard to give a best guess estimate. At this time, it definitely will be updated, but the other piece that's important to note is that I strongly encourage people to contact their legislators, because this change in the Medicaid billing happened just a few weeks ago. And it's being discussed and thought about at length. And it is not the Department of Education. It's the Department of Human Services. So it's not, the Department of Ed didn't do this. It's the way that the Medicaid program is working. And I certainly know that all of the special education or the student services directors are meeting right now to discuss it, because there are other districts that it affected way more money, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. We're a smaller district, but it's still a significant sum of money. If you look at the amount, what was it, the total amount of difference in revenue was $359. $165,000 or $155,000 of that is Medicaid. So it's really important, and the catastrophic aid is also for special education. We just don't know what they're going to give us for that. So there are many revenue sources that are problematic here, not just one, but the biggest one that is a new change that wasn't noticed to us is the Medicaid.
And the change was done by the state, am I correct?
Yes, it was done by the state.
And we all know there's a shift in the political framework of the state.
Yeah, but they shifted that down to us because they couldn't come up with the money out of their budget, is that correct?
I don't know what the reason was. I just know that it certainly took money from us and kept it there.
Yeah, they kept it for their budget and then said screw the schools. Nice.
I've got a question when it's my turn.
Sure.
Is that something that has to go through the legislature and come out of a committee, and it's already done that in the past, or what's the stage of this?
That's an administrative regulation, so it's an agency rule. And I believe that it's already in final stage.
Does it have to go through a vote of the legislature?
No, however, I'm sure the legislature can intervene.
Okay.
If you want Ken Weiler's number,
Actually, I talked to Ken Thursday.
I have his pen, 778-5225.
Okay, so our state representative,
778-5225.
and I believe he is on the finance committee?
He's chair of it.
No, he's a Republican now, the Democrats.
Oh, okay,
All
yeah.
right, well, he's an experienced former chairman.
Yeah, he put many years as chairman, but right now, because of the shift in the state, the Democrats have
It's
the
okay.
majority of the
Doesn't
Senate
matter.
and the House, so
Get it?
he's ranking minority leader or something, you know. But anyway. So, and I happened to see him Thursday. No, Monday.
Did you talk to him about this, Pete?
Oh, I certainly did. Yeah. And the main thing is they can't just, you know, we're trying to put the tax rate together. How can we do it? And he gave me an earful, let's put it that way. And I say an earful, he gave me a lot of information. So, anyway, okay. Next, I think it's also the trees.
Thank you, Matt. You did a terrific job on this, getting it done so early. Thank you.
I'm asking the board to approve to remove 3 trees from next to the building. These 3 trees actually were discussed at a facilities committee meeting about security cameras, because they're blocking security cameras. And actually in one of the scenes, something happened behind the tree and we never caught it. However, when I was walking the site this afternoon, I realized that the trees are shadowing that black part of the building that heats the air before it goes into our HVAC system. So the trees are really negating our heating and cooling. So if we were to remove the trees, we can actually avoid buying cameras and also make the HVAC system work properly. So I'm asking to have those 3 trees removed.
And I asked Matt to bring this to the board just simply because there were extensive architectural drawings and work on the high school, and there is an aesthetic component to the trees. And I felt it was better to have it be explicit and approved by the board that we're taking 3 trees. 1 tree is one thing if it's dying. We had to take one down recently. We were afraid it was going to fall in the parking lot. It actually did damage Michael Tramel's car. That was an easy tree to take out.
That was interesting.
These are 3 living trees that I just wanted you to approve.
Done in-house?
No, we have to hire someone who has bonded for tree removal.
Have a quote?
Matt has a chainsaw. He asked me, and I said no.
I was gonna say, I used to do this for a living, but okay, never mind. You gotta be bonded and I'm out of that business.
Yeah. So the difference
It's insurance.
between cutting down a tree is like $600 to $800 a tree. To buy a camera and to put it out into the parking lot, it ended up to be about $2,300 a camera, and it means ripping up the pavement or trying to find a way of getting a Wi-Fi signal out there. We found that the power that's in the pole is not compatible with the cameras. The power in the pole is at 277 volts when the camera's at 120. So
I have a name of a firefighter who I believe is bonded that would like to bid on it. I'm going to volunteer him. I'll give you
Thank
a
you.
card tomorrow.
So, okay, need a motion?
I move that we remove the 3 trees.
Second,
Any further discussion?
I just have one question. You probably don't have the details, Matt, but you're saying it's impacting the HVAC, the heating and the cooling. Any feel for the amount of savings that would result versus the cost of the tree removal, or not that deep into it?
I didn't go that deep into it. You can see that it's right in front of that black panel. That black panel is where it gets solar from the sun to heat before it goes into the HVAC system. So it just makes sense that we just remove it and we will get efficiencies.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes. Jim?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about some grants.
All right.
Busy night tonight.
Yes. We received a grant from Toshiba America, and basically this is to purchase a refurbished, oh my goodness, I forgot the name of it, bio printer. And this is for a science class. And we've actually received the check.
I'll bite.
I guess we'll accept it.
Right here in the folder.
What's a bio printer?
Is that like a 3D printer?
I guess it's like a 3D printer, but it can print biological material.
Really?
Yeah.
It's called the Find a Fungi. Fun guy?
Fun guy.
Or
That's- You're right, fun guy.
Parasite.
I'm thinking plural. I always wondered why there were
Talk about
not
moose.
Mises and mooses, but there's moose, so I'm just checking in with you, the science guy. It's called the Find a Fungi, Print a Parasite project. And there's information in here that you can certainly take a look and get a feel for it.
How much
Don't
is
we
it
have
for?
enough parasites?
$9,770. I have a copy of the check right here.
That was my
So
next
you see
question
this
I was gonna
purchase on the
ask.
manifest. You'll know that it's been funded with grant funds.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does that cover the entire cost?
Yes. As far as I know, it does.
Motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Boy, you were quick on that
I'm
one.
excited. Great, printers are great.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Aye.
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 Jim?
Yes.
We need a public hearing.
Yeah, you need to allow the public an opportunity to comment
Okay.
if they have a
Anybody
question.
want
because
to
it
talk
isn't
about
here.
the parasites? I took a whole course on that. Let me tell you, it is really interesting. Here we go. Come on down, Cheryl.
Hello, Cheryl Gannon from Kingston. Just wondering if there's any cost for the future for maintaining or parts or for this machine, and how many parasites are we going to let go around the building?
Compared to the ones you already have?
Not additional parasites is the question.
For a period of time.
Yeah, it looks like just to kind of again, I didn't ask Megan Petruzzi to come tonight, who wrote the grant, but I'll give you my best guess, and if this is not correct, I will email the board and you. But it says here that the printer itself is $8,500, and the grant includes costs for a fresh starter kit, which is, it says alginate. You want to look into Chair Broderick because he was a science teacher, and that's $978. I don't know if that would need to be, replenished later. And then there's a hyperlastic bone kit for $291, and free standard ground shipping. So
They probably do, we probably will have future costs.
I
in
would
terms
assume that
of-
there may be some
like
material
paper
costs.
supplies. If
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you're printing paper, you're gonna have, and you're printing fungi, you need fungi to print.
Right, right. I would assume, but just to give you a sense, the initial purchase was about $1,000, but I would assume that that is quite a bit of material, and the science department would have to budget for that if they want to replenish that.
Did you say it was refurbished?
The actual, yes, they got a grant for a refurbished printer.
So is there like some kind of warranty on that? Or?
It says that there's a 1-year warranty, and that didn't cost anything.
I'm assuming it'd be like
Thank
any
you.
other printer, that there'll be a maintenance contract or something of that nature. Okay, so we did vote on it, okay. Any other public comment on it? All right. Coca-Cola.
We received a $27 donation from Coca-Cola for school supplies.
$27?
Yeah, they're gonna pay a little more each quarter, but currently we receive $27.
Nice.
And really, the point of this is all the gifts and grants have to come before the board for approval, and you're gonna see more of this. Okay?
I move to accept.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 $10.
That's gonna be a waste of time. You're gonna have to give us a list, and then we'll adopt the document. If it
Yes,
gets
you can
to
adopt the
be-
list.
If we get a big list,
Okay,
that
yeah.
kind of stuff.
The amounts over 5,000 require the public hearing, but anything below that, we do not require a public hearing, so we could do a list. Yep, great idea.
2774, we can get away with.
Yeah, I was thinking 4,999.
1 week and then 2 weeks later.
Exactly. I'll talk about the next one.
Yes.
Matt and I can both talk about it, but Matt, would you like to kind of explain the situation with the climbing wall at Bakey and why that's back on the agenda?
Yep. This is to cover funding for the cover that goes over the climbing wall. And basically, this is additional funding through that donation that funded the original climbing wall.
Now, I will tell you that that question came up. We did not have this information when the question came up. The information you got was the best information we had at the time, but it turns out the information came to light that it was not necessarily correct.
So this is the cover to prevent kids from climbing on the climbing wall when it's not in use by school officials and school students.
And the amount is $2,400 and it covered the entire cost. So it was separate from the actual wall itself.
So this is an additional grant.
Yes, of $2,400 to cover the cover for the, wait, did I say that right?
Grant.
It's a grant of additional $2,400 for the expense of the cover that would go over the climbing wall.
So we just need to vote to accept
Yes.
this money?
Yep.
Move to approve?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Sort of.
That's an aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
I would again like to just thank the group that donated this for covering this wall. And we do appreciate that.
Very much. And we'll have some videos of kids with the wall in the future so that you can see it. They asked me if I wanted to climb it first, and I said, no, it's not about me, it's about the kids. So
I'm surprised you
Told me
said
you were
no.
afraid of heights.
I'm not afraid of heights. I love rock
I
climbing.
apologize, I don't remember the name of the group donating this.
Katie Toscano.
Yeah, Katie Toscano.
She's from
Katie
Fremont, right?
Toscano?
She's a Kingston resident, Newton resident. She worked at Bakey and
Oh, okay.
she was hit by a car waiting to
School
turn
teacher,
into
yeah.
a honeydew donuts, and she was paralyzed. This was a few years ago.
Oh, my.
Oh, yeah, she was a teacher, right?
She was a
A
paraprofessional, I
parent,
believe.
yeah, on her way to work?
She was on her way to work, but stopping at the donut shop on
Right.
125, I believe. And a truck just hit her from behind and pushed her into oncoming traffic as she was waiting to
God.
turn. And she has been very generous with money that she has received since that time. I don't know all the details.
That's a pretty fair and accurate summary from what I know.
She's been very generous.
Well, thank you.
Pam, how are we doing with the policies?
So we have 3 policies. JJJ is a second read, and the CBI, Superintendent Evaluation and Goal-Setting Policies, are either for first and second read, or we want to think about it some more, let us deliberate and table it for now. So, I just wanted to bring these to your attention, that they do need some work. For the Triple J policy, access to public school programs by non-public charter school and home-educated pupils, Mr. Fitzpatrick has asked us to consider modifying the last sentence, which was added by our administrators. Home-educated students participating in school programs will be expected to adhere to the same academic and behavioral guidelines as students fully enrolled. And the word academic was a concern because it suggests that homeschool students would have to adopt the academic program of the Sanborn Regional School District. And that was not the intention of that final sentence. We considered modifying it to just say homeschooled students will adhere to the RSAs applicable to homeschooling as a replacement sentence, but Mr. Dawson has indicated he'd like to keep it as is. He states that this policy is simply indicating parameters for people taking specific courses or specific co-curricular programs, and that they have to comply with any requirements for the course or program they're enrolling in. They're not changing the curriculum at home in any sense. So if there's a prerequisite for a course, they should be able to prove they've taken the prerequisite before they enroll in our course or program. Or if there's a physical exam needed for a certain sports activity, they have to comply with the requirements. So he would like to keep it as is. He said that it's more of a guideline, will be expected to adhere to. It doesn't say must or shall. And he wrote a letter to Mr. Ambrose indicating that was the intent, was a guideline. So basically we said, okay, we kind of get what you're saying. This is not to interfere with homeschooling. It's simply to note that any courses you take may have strings attached with a specific course taken. And I think it's fine, but again, move to approve with second read. Can I get a second for discussion?
Second.
And is there any further discussion on this? Sure.
So I hear what you're saying. It's the same comments that were made previously, so I will oppose it. It's still written that you must have academics, so I could certainly read that to say the student will not be allowed to play sports because they do not adhere to the same academic criteria that is required at Sanborn Regional School District. If the concern is that no, this has nothing to do with sports, it only is if they are going to come into a school program and take like an advanced chemistry course or what have you, then they must follow the academics of that advanced chemistry course. I think that makes all the sense in the world. No issues with that whatsoever. But it doesn't say that. It says that if you're going to go to any school programs, which include sports programs, then you have to meet the academic guidelines. And I don't think that that is acceptable to say that somebody that's homeschooled must meet academic guidelines set by the Sanborn Regional School District in order to play sports.
I think there might be some confusion, and let me just, I wanted to ask you a question so I understood your concern. The way I read this and the way that the administration read it is that you can't, it would be unfair to Sanborn students if you had a homeschooled student who had Fs in 4 classes to participate in a sport when the academic requirement to participate in the sport is that you're passing all your classes.
I would agree with that.
That's what this is written for, though.
Okay, but I could also say, well, I could interpret that to say, well, I see that you have religious instruction in your homeschooling. Religious instruction is not part of the Sanborn School District's academic program, therefore you're not eligible.
No, that's not the way this was. I can understand how you would, if that was put into practice that way, we'd have a way bigger problem than this policy, right? So I'm just saying that would be illegal. So that's a separate issue. The way this is written is that it's home educated students who participate in school programs. So that's the key. They have to participate in a school program. They have to adhere to the same academic and behavioral guidelines. You have to be academically eligible. You have to have the prerequisites. You can't come to school and behave however you want. You still have to follow the handbook. And that was the point. The administrators met and felt very strongly that they need this language in here. So I hear your concern, and I just want to allay that concern as much as I can, that if you are correct, if that happened, that would be a significant problem, but this wouldn't be where that would occur.
Motion?
Motion's on the floor.
I have a small amendment for the policy. So how about if we added, will be expected to adhere to the same academic and behavioral guidelines, and add in here, established for the course or extracurricular program selected.
I'm gonna stop.
In
you
other
here for a
words, we're
second.
targeting the
Okay,
specific,
I'm gonna stop you here for a second, because that's, we have a motion on the floor.
right,
And now you want to amend the motion on the, so I think we need to
Right.
vote on the motion.
okay.
If it goes down to defeat,
I can
then
amend.
it can be
All
brought
right,
up,
that sounds
all right.
fine, sure.
okay? But I will caution you before we go that this has already gone by all the administrators and what have you. So to vote on
Let's
it
take the
now without them seeing that change,
Okay,
okay? So let's see how this vote goes first. Okay, Jamie?
Nay.
Yes.
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 no,
Yes. Jim?
I'm going to say no because I'd like to see it worked on a little further.
All right, okay. So did you get the count? 1, 2, 3, 4 yay. 1, 2, 3 nay. So you got the people
So it
as I pointed
passed.
to them all right? Okay, so the motion does pass, all right. I see your concern, but I don't, I think we're covered, let's put it that way, you know?
It's not to say it can't be brought up another time.
Well,
we're just
also,
trying to save some parents litigation heartache, that's all.
Well, see, to me, it looks like, it's as if they said, I'm an astronomer and I would like to teach my child astronomy. Well, you can't do that because it's not in the curriculum. Yes, you can. That's gonna be over and above. You know, you can add to it, you just can't take away from it. That's how I look at it.
right,
You know,
I agree with Peter.
you know. Okay, so what do we got next?
Let's look at the superintendent evaluation for this year. Next,
Before we go any further, again, like I said, I would like to hold these until we review in committee. These
Okay.
have not been reviewed.
No,
Oh, you haven't gone through
I was
committee?
gonna say that.
Let me just, one more comment, because Pete said you can add to it, but you can't take away. So I'll give you another, for instance. You didn't do our mandatory sex education in your homeschooling, therefore you didn't meet the requirements. So you can't play football.
I
I
understand
don't
where
think
you're
it's
coming
that
from, but it doesn't
specific.
work that way, Jamie. It just doesn't, if that happened, the parent would immediately appeal to me. And then if I overturned that and upheld that, which I wouldn't, they would appeal to you. They would be here in front of you saying, why is this happening? And then if you held it up, then it would go to court. So you have to, I'm just trying to help you to understand the process that there's a process. Now, if somebody wanted a Sanborn diploma and had been homeschooled and didn't take the prerequisite courses, they would be denied a diploma. And that would be legal.
Yep.
But to participate in a Sanborn class, they would only need to meet the prerequisites for that course. So if you want to take calculus, you have to have pre-calc, you have to have algebra 2, you have to have geometry, and you have to have algebra 1, and you have to demonstrate that you've met those learning targets. But even then, they would allow them to take the course in the sense that they're not going to audit all the tests and quizzes for 5 years of information. They're just trying to avoid a situation in which somebody comes in and says, I want to play football and I haven't done any schoolwork for 2 years. Homeschooling
can't have
in New
that.
Hampshire is
I agree with
very,
that.
very loose. And it's very important that we maintain the integrity for fairness for our kids, that it's equal regardless of where you've been receiving your education. That's the real intent. But there is an appeals process, and it occurred to me that you didn't know that. So I want to make sure that you understand that appeals process is extensive.
It is, I think it could have been written such that it alleviates those concerns for anybody reading the policy, so.
As to these next two policies.
tabled.
To me, yeah, table. And the reason, I'll give you the reason we have committees is to look over these, get the feedback from the administrators, whoever, and then report that to the board so that the board doesn't have to do all of that. So in a sense, why don't we do our work first and then we'll report it back in, okay?
It's only 7:10.
Huh?
It's only 7:10.
Isn't,
We could do it tonight.
No.
Just
No.
saying.
Okay, so
A lot of
we're in
other-
agreement that.
Yeah, no, that's
We're all
fine.
policy people, so we're comfortable with that. All right, so we're gonna
Turning
table
to the
those.
evaluation itself,
Yeah.
evaluation form, could we approve that tonight and look
I
that
would
over?
rather do both of them together.
Yeah, because one is cousin to the other.
Yeah, and Yeah.
Well, we
It-
did review it at our last meeting, the actual form has
I'd
been
rather still
reviewed
do
by
it
the.
with the two of them together in hand.
Yeah,
Just in case
it'll
we
take
do
us
have a
5
problem.
minutes at the committee and then we'll just,
So we'll table
take us
that as
5
well.
minutes here,
All right,
yeah.
thank you.
I mean, they're so related that, you know.
Yeah, I agree
Public
with you,
comment
Kevin.
2.
I'd rather do the two of them together.
Come on, Cheryl, you got something, there we go.
Thank you. Cheryl Gannon from Kingston. I know you don't have to answer questions, but I have a question. In regards to the changes from the Department of Human Services for Medicaid reimbursement was that just for medical? Said it was going to have to be approved by a licensed physician. Is it just for medical things like wheelchairs or did it specify what they were going to require?
This is so long, I don't know if we
It's an
can.
18-page document. Would you like to
Okay.
email me? We'll forward it to you.
Yeah.
Is that available anywhere, like online, or where would we find that?
I think it would be better if we emailed it to you because we got it as an email from one of our associations.
Great, that would be great. And then the other thing you had mentioned, there was a change in catastrophic aid. Has the formula been changed for that? Is that
No.
why you're estimating the reimbursement's going to go down?
The state revenues haven't been set because the budget hasn't been approved.
Bless you.
Their budget hasn't been approved.
So catastrophic aid depends on the state budget.
Yes.
Yeah, that's in the budget.
Okay. And I was wondering if Sanborn might be considering joining some other districts in the lawsuit against the amount of money that the state believes would provide an adequate education for a student in 2020.
Yeah, that's, I happen to have read about that a couple months ago. I don't even think we've discussed it. But that's, again, what is it, Claremont 17 or something? You know, but I believe Claremont is spearheading that also.
Yeah, there's
That would need to be on the
several other districts in it as well. Just a comment, I mean, I think it's ludicrous what this state considers to be an appropriate amount to fund for an adequate education for a student.
Well, I
In
believe
this
it's gone to
day
the
and
judge, and
age.
the judge is pretty much, I think you're echoing, I believe, what the judge said.
Excuse me?
If I read it correctly, I think you're echoing what the judge said. You know,
Oh, has it been decided?
Hasn't been decided, but the judge, I believe, if I read this correctly, I read it 3 or 4 months ago, has sent it back to them and said, hey, get together here.
I just lost my train of thought. Thank you, Mr. Broder. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
could I make a correction to something that I said earlier? It's a,
Oh,
we
you
were
made a
talking
mistake?
about.
Write-
we were
write this
talking
down.
about Ms. Toscano and her donation, and you asked me if she was a teacher, and I just spoke from my memory, but apparently she was a second grade teacher. So I wanted to make that correction.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, anything that you would like to discuss further? Oh, Jamie, no. Okay.
We do have a non-public.
Yes, we do have a non-public. The only thing I see on the agenda that we discussed was the architectural bid, and the policy people will be getting together on those that we tabled tonight. So we've got that also. I believe that's it, so I'll make the announcements, and that is the Sanborn Regional School Board meeting will be a joint meeting with Fremont, held Wednesday, October 2, 2019, from 6 to 9 p.m. in the library at Sanborn Regional High School, 17 Danvers Road, Kingston, New Hampshire, and that'll be right here. We do that twice a year. We meet with Fremont. Last one was at their school, and now this year they'll be coming to this school. We do have a non-public, so we'll take a couple minutes, allow people to get squared away, and allow the telecommunications on the telecommunications to get
Mr.
squared away.
Chairman, you wish to go into
And we need a motion for the non-public.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go into non-public session, RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2. I have no letters this time.
Second.
A and C?
Discussion?
Aye.
Aye?
I,
Aye.
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 Yes.
Okay, and again, because we're leaving, he is by himself and he's even got headphones on. So he is alone.